Shalom, this is Mary Omni from the World Government House of King David, Holy Covenant Constitutional Enforcer. This is a Republic Notice. The title of this Republic Notice is called The Patrix Delusion. The title of this Republic Notice is called The Patrix Delusion. This is a constitutional, trademark, copyright series about the Patrix in May 2013. The Patrix Delusion relates to some of the other series. I recommend you check out The Secret to Unplugging from the Patrix 1 and The Secret to Unplugging from the Patrix 2. The Patrix Delusion is part of that series that is constitutionally trademarked and copyrighted. Now, the Patrix Delusion is so swift and smart that in 2013, you have almost a whole nation of people talking about how to unplug from the matrix, okay? So the Patrix Delusion is that you are stuck in a matrix. Thereby, you won't recognize that your imprisonment come through the Patrix. Your mental, your psychological, your spiritual, your emotional imprisonment is all through the Patrix. But you're deluded by the help of satanic first arm, Hollywood, who put a nuclear explosion in your brain to override your circuitry. And so to give you the delusion that it's the matrix you must fight against and unplug from. And we got some of the supposedly most intelligent people can talk so much about parallel realities and Gaia and Mother Earth and lifting the planet and higher dimensions, but they haven't dealt with this third dimension and truth of how their mind is controlled by the Patrix, because they are still controlled by Hollywood, who telling them that they caught up in the matrix. And that's part of the Patrix Delusion of reinforcement. Now, the Patrix reinforcement of delusion is so vast, and it reinforces even though it has automatic reinforcement. Sometimes it uses Hollywood to reinforce it. It's reinforced all the time. Now, part of the Patrix Delusion was also when we talk about the 9/11 bombing. People were so caught up in that rah, 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 I'm patriotic, that they went to war with Iraq. And they went to war with Iraq saying, I'm going to serve my country. And then they asked questions later. And then George Bush, President George Bush, I might add, their elected president, laughed in their face and said, maybe the weapons of mass destruction is under this desk. And he started looking under a desk and laughing in their face. Now, is it President George Bush's fault? No, I wouldn't think so. Not by himself. He's just going along with the grand delusion that was already there. And 2 Thessalonians 2:11 said, the Most High will send a strong delusion because people didn't like truth. They didn't like truth. And one of the truths that they didn't like is that the black woman was part of the foundation of America, and that the black woman is the true 14th Amendment, and that the black woman is the first inheritor of the 14th Amendment, because people can only be born from a woman. And it came with all persons born, and it came to the former captives first. Okay? People don't like this truth. They want a grand delusion of white maleness like Woodrow Wilson perpetrated with the birth of a new nation when he put his idols in of the burning cross and the robe and the white horse and said, I'm going to birth a new nation based on white supremacy. Not the Constitution that republic that holds black people and hold that black woman as equal to the supremacy clause. You don't want to accept that, do you? Why don't you follow me in my birth of a new nation? Well, this was about 1913. He took office and started the military-industrial complex. And we got those who want it and like it a lie and like it delusion and like strong delusion, called the public. They're called the public. They've been voting for this for 100 years, just to make sure they uphold that white supremacy. Now, they'll cry innocent. They'll cry like they're an innocent 2-year-old child and I didn't know and this and that and the other. Oh, they'll cry all the innocence in the world. But, they knew and was comfortable with all white senates and all white governors and all white this and all white that and all white this for years. And we're talking about 100 years. They were so comfortable with all white senators. They were so comfortable at the demise of black people without any, conscious level. They even, just like the Illuminati, bragged about black people being in ghetto and stuck in jails, and their family dismantlement of a single black mother. And didn't they even act hostile that this black woman got a few crumbs of her own wealth to feed her children? They got hostile, like, why should we give them set-asides, and why should they have welfare, and why should they have a black college? They only are the DNA that invested 400 to 500 years human capital, and her womb is only the DNA that produced the 54th Infantry out of Massachusetts that won the Civil War. Her womb is the foundation of America. And they hated her bearing any fruit that could benefit from her long-term struggle and investment. Why? Because they wanted a Patrix delusion of white supremacy, male white supremacy. Like Woodrow Wilson said in The Birth of His New Nation, and the birth of his new nation was the delusional, parasitic nation of thieves and consenting thieves to debt and theft of the republic, black women and her children, wealth. Okay? This Patriot delusion even have whites today talking about, they are so delusional. They're talking about, we help free you black people. Now, they have had all white senates and all white governors, and now they resorting to even foreign color for their public majority. Now, they have had this majority where they made sure all the senates and the governors and everything was white. And somehow they are that delusional to talk about they help free blacks when they are the strongest that's ever been that warred against the republic, constitutional, and black rights. They are the strongest whites. This last 100 years is the strongest whites that trample. I'm saying strong in their trampling, strong in their anti-constitutionalism, strong in their antichrist. They are the body of the antichrist. They were the strongest in their evil. They were the strongest ones that fought against black rights to black inalienable rights. They were the biggest infringers of inalienable rights. They were the biggest beneficiaries of temporal beneficiaries, and they went for the trinkets. They was the delicious whores of the banksters and gangsters. They was the delicious prostitutes of the banksters and gangsters. The banksters and gangsters rewarded their whores and prostitutes as long as they held the debt vessels. They even used a propaganda, nuclear propaganda of the television to reinforce the grand delusion of blacks being dirty, poor, and, somehow foreign. And then when blacks started calling themselves African American, boy, that was just right up their alley, the propaganda they needed, because then, it soothed the grand delusion of the Patrix that blacks were somehow foreign. Even though they were still in that constitution, they wanted the grand delusion. So that was right up their alley and helped delude them more. And even the baby booming generation, They went and they danced to Motown songs and black people singing to them, and they danced to Motown songs off Cosmic Beat. They saw President Kennedy, he had blown off in the daylight, falling on his wife's lap, his brains splattered. They watched Robert Kennedy assassinated. They watched Malcolm X assassinated. They watched Dr. Martin Luther King assassinated. They watched Medgar Evers assassinated. And these baby boomers said, well, I, see all that, but I'm more interested in my white trinkets and my Subaru and my suburban house and my white privilege of being able to run like a herd of majority animals and put all white senates and all white governors in and forget about all this hijacking. All right? So now these same baby boomers on the Tea Party talking about, I don't want socialism. Well then, don't pretend you're owed any Social Security, because remember, you fought the Republic because you're the public with the all-white senates and all-white governors, so you have nothing to do with constitutionality. You're Babylon motherhood child of corporate and foreign, because you are the biggest fighters. You are the biggest avengers against the Constitution, so you have nothing to do with constitutional wealth. And then you say, oh, well, I'm paying these taxes. This is the other Patrix delusion. I'm paying these taxes, and you doing this with my tax money, and Michelle Obama is spending my tax money doing this, and President Obama is doing this with my tax money. The Patrix delusion is that somehow you can pay taxes when you stole and you help infringe with the banksters on somebody else's birthrights. So you infringe on a non-consented 14th Amendment, because 3/5 couldn't consent, so they inherited the 14th Amendment under the Republic Supreme Contract. They're non-consenters, confirmed by the Dred Scott case. He had no legal rights. That meant no legal rights to consent to even his own constitutional legality as a national constitutional supreme contracting citizen that Constitution protects. See, these are God Almighty namesake, and he Fort Knox his children. God Almighty protects his children contractually. And they are called the blameless, non-considered, set-apart namesakes of Judah, okay? The true Israelites who had a nation in 1866, 82 years before this Balfour 1948 of this Patrix grand delusion. And the truth of it is, this 1948 was financed by the wealth of real Judah who had established a nation 82 years before them in North America, as far as the Constitutional Republic 1 through 15th Amendment Supreme Contract. And so what that new supposedly apostate Khazar Israel did was act as a welfare nation and told the U.S. corporation to steal from the Constitution and finance their welfare Israel. But that's okay, because we own Israel and Palestine by supreme contract, because you cannot consent to receiving money from the United States in far as federal aid or foreign aid unless you consent to debt and theft with the U.S. corporate mule that don't have one amendment. So it's just to hold consenters to debt and theft like the majority of white public. They're nothing but debt and theft vessels who love to suck the Patrix for his trinkets just so he can give them a grand delusion of some kind of foreign constitutionality where they can have all white senators and all white governors and make sure the constitutional citizens is the poorest in the nation, and they supposed to be maintaining some level of constitutionality. No, the banksters, all the elite know you are just debt vessels. That's why all wars and World War I became able, because they had their debt vessel grand delusionals who wanted the Patrix because they wanted to be above the black Judah woman that Christ comes through and her children. So, you as the public, Patrix, public Patrix, public Patrix, public Patrix. Patrix public, Patrix public, Patrix public.
Has been trampling the blood of King Yeshua, Matrix Republic, for 100 years. Therefore, you are the Antichrist, and you're the body of the Antichrist, with Woodrow Wilson, who set up his idols and burned crosses in the birth of a new nation to get you to trample King Yeshua, Holy Covenant, of the Constitution with the Bill of Rights 1 through 15, with 15th Amendment is the New Jerusalem Wall of non-consent supremacy, automatic, cosmically energized vote, which means you never had a 14th. Your banksters gave you a fictitious one to get you as a delusional debt vessel. And the mule, 1871 King Yeshua, rode in, ensured that you couldn't get past the mule, so your dad going sure couldn't get past the 15th wall, because the mule don't have any amendments, and it sits with a hole there for the Tower of Babel going to hell as debt vessel holders. those who trample the Holy Covenant, those who fought against those vulnerable people, like King Jesus said, what you do to the least of these, you do unto me. So you trample Jesus. You trample his people. And therefore, you're in a Patrix. You're in a Patrix because King Jesus tells you in Galatians 4:4, when the time of the Gentiles has fulfilled, he was born under the law of a woman. And that's that woman seed in 115, the matrix, that the Patrix delusional trample. And now they holding up Hollywood how to escape from it. But the Patrix got your ass lock, stock, and barrel. And they even got you thinking you in a matrix to make sure they hold you forever lock, stock, and barrel.
This is Mary Omni from the house of King David. Shalom.